This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.
All right, right now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Joining us from Arkansas is Bo Mattingly. He hosts a statewide radio show, Sports Talk with Bo Mattingly, and it is all things Razorbacks. Bo, thank you very much for being on the show with us today here in Tyler. Obviously, the SEC is a lot bigger news for us now because of A&M's move. We also carry the LSU games on our radio station, so there's a major interest in what's going on up in your neck of the woods, and you've talked to a number of national figures about their response to what's gone on with Bobby Petrino. What's your response to what's gone on with Petrino?
Disappointing for Razorback fans because he was the guy that had really gotten this program to a clip of wins that you felt like was the beginning of some consistency to being a program that every year was going to compete for the SEC Western Division. Arkansas has had some flashes of success in the past, but they weren't able to maintain it. And Bobby Petrino, for all of his flaws, is a really good football coach. And he gets results. And, you know, he has had a record of 21-5 over the last 2 years. They have experienced financial gain over the last 2 years that perhaps is the most explosive growth over a 2-year period of any college football program in recent memory, according to Forbes magazine. They're an $89 million football program right now. That's 8th best in the country, and they're building a $40 million football facility of offices and you know, just locker rooms and stuff like that. I mean, it's a great time to be an Arkansas football fan, or at least it was until all this happened.
When Petrino came to Arkansas, though, everybody knew his history. I would think that there were a lot of people who were just kind of waiting for this kind of thing to happen at some point.
Well, you know, what people thought were going to happen with Petrino, what they were thinking, here's my take on all that. He was going to leave for another job. Mm-hmm. When Bobby Petrino came to Arkansas, that's what we heard. He won't stay there. You can't trust him. You can't believe him. He's going to leave for another job. It's about him. He's a job hopper. And they addressed that. You know, they brought him in 2010, December of 2010. They gave him a new contract with a mere $18 million buyout for the first 2 years. And, you know, that was a pretty extensive buyout even beyond that, but came down each year thereafter. So he was locked up as the Arkansas coach. He wasn't going anywhere. And that was the concern that you had with him based on his reputation. Not that he was going to go give a female employee that he was having an extramarital relationship with $20,000 and affect the hiring process of 159 applicants and put her in that spot. And there was nothing to indicate that kind of behavior in his past. And people say, well, what about his character? I mean, you have bad character. Can't you expect these kinds of things? Look, we all have character flaws. But, I mean, are we to suggest that if somebody tells lies, they're then going to do all that? I think that's a little bit of a stretch. So, yeah, they were at risk because of his reputation a little bit, but I don't think anybody expected this kind of thing. And part of the reason is because he's so detailed in all that he does. I mean, you think, okay, Bobby Petrino lies, but certainly he's not going to put himself in a position to ruin his career, at least for the moment, and his family. He's way too detailed and smart for that. So this didn't add up, you know, in terms of what his past was.
And then we see today in different stories that apparently the text messages are out there, some 4,300 text messages, nearly 300 phone calls over the past 7 months. So this has been going on for a while. And so what's your reaction to all this new stuff coming out, and is there going to be more?
Yeah, I think there is going to be more, and really it probably just depends on, you know, why the media is doing what it's doing. You know, why does the local media want to get all this information? Do they want to go back the last couple of years of his phone records and see if there were any other affairs? Because the one unveiled is just over a certain period of time from September to April. was this kind of thing going on while he had been the coach previous to this affair? Do they want to dig around in all that? Is that just because they want to, find sensational tidbits about the story? Because for all intents and purposes, it doesn't matter. I mean, he's gone. It's over. You don't need to continue to prove the case that he's gone. So I don't know what the motivation will be by people to do that, but if there is motivation to dig more, I think they will find more. Specifically, I don't want to say exactly what, but I think there's more, stuff that could come out that could be damaging to his reputation and show why the university acted as they did.
How much damage does this do to the Arkansas football program at this point?
Depends who their next coach is going to be. They can survive this for a while. They can probably still have a pretty good season. Even with an interim coach, they've got a really good team. They've got some question marks on their team, but they're really good. And it depends who the next guy is going to be. For the great decision that it seems like Jeff Long has made, the tough decision, and the way he's led this program and all the praise he's getting for that, there's going to be an equal amount of criticism if he can't go out and do really what's a challenging chore right now, and that's find a really good football coach. Petrino has built this to a top-level football program, and with all the new things that are coming in and the last couple of years of success, it would seem to be an attractive job for people, but we're in April, and that's not when football coaches take jobs. So it's going to be a unique coaching search, and if they can't get somebody before the season begins, how much do you lose in recruiting if a new coach comes in say, December or January, and then you've got a month till signing day? I mean, how do you recruit for that next class? So they could take a major hit in one recruiting class, and that's a big deal, but that's probably the extent of the damage as it sits today, and you're trying to forecast what's going to happen.
Is there somebody on the staff right now that would seem like an odds-on favorite that could be capable of taking over and keeping this machine running?
In my opinion, there are two ways they could go. I mean, they could go three or four ways, but to me, the best two options are Paul Petrino, which is problematic only because he shares the last name of Bobby Petrino, and I know people laugh at that, but to me, he's the best candidate because he's so familiar with the system that they run and their organization. But the other guy's the recruiting coordinator. He didn't get talked about a lot, but Tim Horton has a lot of skills of a head coach in the way that he handles people, the way he manages things, the reputation that he has, an impeccable character guy, lots of great relationships throughout the state. He might be a great guy to put in that role right now as you continue a coaching search. Tabor Johnson is, in my mind, just the assistant head coach by title. He's not by any means the most qualified on the staff to assume that role. Paul Haynes is a guy as a defensive coordinator that's been talked about a lot, but this is his first coordinator's job. Both he and Tabor Johnson were position assistant coaches at Ohio State before coming to Arkansas, and they've both only been here for 4 months. So, those are some guys on staff that I think that they're considering. What's interesting is that they had two really qualified candidates on the staff a year ago, and John L. Smith and Garrick McGee, who are no longer here.
Talk a little bit about the Arkansas job in general. Prior to Petrino coming there, the Arkansas job was, I guess, just one that was really hard to win. Why was that? It had been a storied program, back in the 60s and 70s, even the 80s. What is it that made it tougher to win recently? And then what did Petrino do that other guys couldn't do there?
Great questions. It's a tough league. You start with that. It's a very tough league to win in. Number two is you don't have a built-in recruiting base of high school SEC-type football players that are coming out, so you got to go outside of the state. And then you have to be a great developer of what you get. I mean, you got to take guys that either others missed on and are really better than people thought, or you got to get the absolute most out of every player that you have. And I think Petrino did both of those things. He got the most out of what he had, and he developed players in an incredible way. I mean, you go back and look at how Petrino's recruiting classes have been re-ranked 4 years after signing day based on performance, and they jump 30, 40 spots in the rankings. It's happened a handful of times, and every time it's amazing the results of how he developed players or outperformed his recruiting ranking on National Signing Day. The other thing is he's great with quarterbacks. And when you have great quarterback play, that can be a great way to bridge the gap between you and teams that have more talent across the board.
Yeah, LSU would have liked to have had that.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how big quarterback play. I mean, they had a great season, but you can't underestimate quarterback play at any level.
Okay, so just based on the time now that that everybody in Arkansas has had a chance to process all of this, Jeff Long comes off looking really good in this thing. But what is the overall tenor of the phone calls you take on your radio show? Is there panic? Do they feel confident that now Jeff Long can keep this thing going? What is the feel in Arkansas right now about the future of the program?
There's concern. But there's also a real belief from the majority of folks in our state in Jeff Long. It's been amazing to watch how they went from believing in Bobby Petrino to believing in the athletic director. A lot of people look at Jeff Long and they think he is to his position what Bobby Petrino was to being a head coach at Arkansas. And they've got faith that Jeff Long can now go out, find the right guy, and win football games. Now, there is a lot of concern because of all the obvious complications with getting someone now. And, prior to getting Bobby Petrino, there wasn't a lot of real high-profile coaches lined up for the job. But I think people, by and large, have bought into Jeff Long, at least for now, until they have reason to believe otherwise. And so that's been a calming force, Jeff Long's leadership for the state of Arkansas over the last several days.
And the team right now is in spring training, correct?
Yeah, they're in spring practice right now. The spring game's April 21st. It's a very awkward time right now.
So, and what's their reaction been to all of this stuff?
Well, what I hear, what they're going to say publicly and what we hear from behind closed doors may be slightly different, but I don't believe that they're really all that upset. I don't think Bobby Petrino had much of a relationship with each individual player or coach. This was operated as a business, and that means your conversations were pretty much business related, and you just went about business and within a system, and you show up at this meeting at this time, and you deal with your position coach, and you hear from the head coach at certain times, but it's very much an unattached, as far as relationships go, business. And so I don't feel like there's a lot of personal attachment to him. And so people are still as far as players are communicating with their position coaches who they've always talked to. So, and from a staff standpoint, he's not an easy guy to work for. I think everybody understands his level of demands. So there's probably a little bit of a rejuvenation, an excitement, something new, and an opportunity for coaches to really prove their worth as far as the situation they're in right now.
Well, I know it's chaotic, but it makes your job a little easier this time of the year, that's for sure. We really do appreciate you coming on, Bo. Thank you very much for giving us a little insight into what's going on up at Razorback Nation right now, and we enjoyed talking to you.
Hey, thanks for having me. All the best to you guys.
Thank you very much. Bo Mattingly, Sports Talk with Bo Mattingly, of course, all over the state of Arkansas and on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.
This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.